wasn't disciplined. I wasn't driven by motivation. I simply made one decision. I refused to stop. And that single decision slowly reshaped my entire life. Hello, my name is Michael, and this is my story. For a long time, I existed in a place that felt safe, but painfully ordinary. I was comfortable, yet stuck. Everyone talks about success. You see it everywhere, on your phone screen, in casual conversations, in that silent pressure you feel when others seem to move forward while you remain where you are. Wherever I looked, people were chasing better lives, bigger dreams, stronger, sharper versions of themselves. And deep inside, just like them, I wanted more. I wanted more than the life I was living. More confidence when I spoke, more certainty about where I was heading, more meaning when I opened my eyes each morning. But back then, there was one crucial truth I didn't understand, a truth that now feels obvious. Most people don't fail because success is unreachable. They fail because they believe change must be loud, dramatic, and instant. They believe that if transformation doesn't happen immediately, then starting isn't even worth the effort. That belief didn't just slow me down, it paralyzed me. Years passed while I stayed frozen in place. I kept waiting, waiting for the perfect morning, waiting for the perfect plan, waiting for that sudden wave of motivation that would magically turn me into someone new. And while I waited, life kept moving, without me. My dreams didn't vanish overnight. They faded quietly, day after day, until they became background noise I learned to ignore. What I couldn't see at the time was this. Real success is almost never built through giant leaps. It's built through small, nearly invisible steps. Steps that don't impress anyone. Steps that don't earn praise. Steps most people ignore because they don't bring instant results. At school, I was nothing special. I wasn't the smartest student. I wasn't athletic or naturally gifted. I wasn't confident enough to raise my hand. I wasn't bold enough to stand out. I existed quietly, unnoticed, unremarkable. Everywhere I looked, others seemed ahead of me. My classmates spoke with certainty. They answered questions without hesitation. They walked as if they already knew where their lives were going, and I felt like I was standing still, watching everything through invisible glass. Comparison became my quiet addiction, and every comparison made me feel smaller. I did try to change, or at least I thought I did, but every attempt followed the same painful cycle. I'd wake up one morning full of determination and tell myself, today is the day. Everything changes now. I would study intensely for a week, pushing my mind until exhaustion. Then I would quit. I'd sign up for a gym, train aggressively for 10 days, then disappear. I'd promise myself to wake up early. 3 mornings later, my alarm clock would win again. Every failure left a mark. Every broken promise weakened my trust in myself, until one dangerous thought appeared. Maybe I'm just not good enough. At first, it was only a whisper, something easy to ignore. But over time, it became a belief. I started accepting the idea that being average was my fate, that success was meant for others, that some people were born to rise, and people like me were meant to quietly watch from the sidelines. Looking back now, I realize how close I was to giving up completely, and I wasn't alone. Around that time, I knew a boy named Daniel. He was younger than me, quiet, full of untapped potential. At first, he tried hard. He studied. He practiced. He dreamed. But failure reached him early. He failed exams, lost confidence. People stopped believing in him, and eventually he stopped believing in himself. Daniel gave up. He stopped trying at school, stopped setting goals, stopped believing his effort mattered. I remember seeing him one evening, sitting alone staring into nothing. He said quietly, "What's the point? I'll never be good enough anyway." That was his lowest moment. But months later, something changed. Daniel didn't restart with confidence. He restarted exhausted. He began again from zero. One tiny habit, one small promise. 5 minutes of reading, a short walk, one completed task each day. No motivation, just discipline. Slowly, painfully, he rebuilt himself. Years later, Daniel succeeded, not because he was talented, but because he stopped quitting. I didn't fully understand it back then, but his story was already pointing me toward the truth. That truth finally reached me one ordinary afternoon. I was visiting my grandfather. He sat alone in the courtyard, carefully polishing an old wooden chair. The chair was scratched, worn, tired. Looking at it felt like looking at myself. After watching him for a while, I asked, "Grandpa, why do you spend so much time on that chair? It will never be new again." He looked up, calm and smiling. "Do you see these small strokes?" he said. "Each one seems meaningless alone, but together they slowly bring the chair back to life." Then he said something that stayed with me. "Life works the same way. You don't rebuild yourself in one day. You add a little shine every single day." In that moment, something shifted. I realized my problem was never laziness. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't talent. It was my expectations. I demanded perfection instead of progress. I chased dramatic change instead of sustainable growth. That day, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would stop trying to change everything at once. I would focus on becoming just 1% better each day. Instead of forcing hours of studying, I started with 15 minutes. No pressure, no heroics. Each day, I added 5 minutes. Instead of exhausting workouts, I began with 5 push-ups, then 6, then 7. And instead of trying to master a language overnight, I began learning 5 new French words each day. At first, nothing seemed different. No applause, no dramatic transformation. I almost felt foolish. But beneath the surface, something powerful was forming. After 30 days, 15 minutes of study quietly became 2 focused hours. My body felt stronger. My thinking became sharper. My confidence, fragile but real, began to grow. I wasn't overwhelmed anymore. I wasn't chasing perfection. I was building consistency. And that's when the most important lesson of my life became clear. Small actions, repeated daily, create unstoppable momentum. I didn't become extraordinary overnight, but I stopped being average the moment I stopped quitting on myself. And if you're listening to this feeling stuck, exhausted, disappointed in yourself, remember this. You don't need to change your entire life today. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need massive motivation. You just need to add a little shine. One small step, 1% better, every single day. What started as 5 simple push-ups slowly grew into 50. Not because I suddenly trained harder, not because discipline magically appeared overnight, but because I refused to stop. There were days when I didn't feel like doing them. Days when my body felt heavy. Days when my mind whispered, "Skip it just this once." But I chose not to listen. 5 became 10. 10 became 20. And without noticing when it happened, 50 push-ups felt normal, not impressive, not heroic, just normal. The same thing happened with the 5 new French words I committed to learning each day. At first, they felt pointless, random, easy to forget. I memorized them without emotion, without excitement, without believing they would ever matter. And then something unexpected happened. One day I caught myself thinking in those words, forming sentences naturally, using them without effort or force. They were no longer new words. They had become part of me. That's when I understood something important. The greatest change wasn't physical. It wasn't academic. It was internal. My confidence began to rise. Not loudly, not suddenly, not in a way anyone could point to and say, "That's the moment." It grew quietly, steadily, like light slowly filling a room that had been dark for years. Weeks turned into months. I didn't wake up one day as a genius. I didn't suddenly become extraordinary. But something undeniable was happening beneath the surface. In class, my hands started going up more often. Not every time. Not confidently at first, but sometimes. And every time I spoke, the next time became easier. My body changed too. I looked stronger, healthier, more alive. When I walked, my shoulders were no longer slumped. My head was no longer down. I stood taller, not because my height changed, but because I finally believed I deserved to take up space. When I spoke, my voice didn't shake like it used to. My words landed clearly. People listened. That alone felt unreal. Then came a moment I will never forget. A school debate competition. Normally, I would have avoided something like that at all costs. A stage, an audience. Judgment. The old version of me would have found an excuse, stayed silent, hidden in the back. But that day I stepped forward. As I spoke, something strange happened. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't pretending to be confident. I was confident. Not because I believed I was better than anyone else, but because for the first time in my life, I trusted myself. When the results were announced and my name was called for first place, the room fell silent. Even my teachers looked stunned. Afterward, one of them pulled me aside and asked quietly, "Michael, how did you change so much?" I smiled, not with pride, not with arrogance, just honesty. "I didn't change everything at once," I said. "I just became 1% better every day." That's the side of success no one talks about. You don't need dramatic breakthroughs. You don't need massive motivation. You don't need to rebuild your entire life overnight. You need tiny steps, because 1% improvement doesn't look powerful in a single day, but it compounds. 1% better every day doesn't mean you're just slightly better in a year. It means you're 37 times better. Think about that. If you read just 10 pages a day, in 1 year you don't just finish 12 or 15 books. You become a different thinker. If you save just $1 a day, you don't just save money, you build discipline, a habit far stronger than waiting for a big paycheck that may never come. This is what I learned. Success is not about intensity. It's about consistency. Small actions, repeated daily, create unstoppable momentum. So if you feel stuck right now, if you feel invisible, if you feel average, hear this clearly. Don't try to change your entire life today. Ask yourself just one question. What is one small thing I can do today to become 1% better? Because greatness is not built in a single moment. It's built quietly, patiently, daily, one stroke at a time, one step at a time, 1% at a time. And one day when you look back, you'll realize something incredible. Those tiny steps you once doubted, they became the giant leap you always dreamed of. Big success is nothing more than small improvements done consistently. Your 1% today becomes your 100% tomorrow. And if you remember just one thing from this story, remember this. Small steps, taken daily, create a life most people only dream about.